Hey everyone, welcome to another episode. I'm just realizing chapter after chapter that there's a program for each type of grower actually. And on this episode we have a very special guests because their program solely focuses on rice. And you don't see that many programs out there. So if you are a rice farmer, particularly in the Mississippi Delta area, like us at Vayda, this one is for you. So I'm welcoming Megan and Trevor from Agricapture here today. So welcome, guys.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Hey, thank
Uh,
you.
yeah, this one will be fun. Can you briefly give us an overview on what Agricapture does and how it can actually help growers?
Yeah, I can take that one and give kind of the high level overview. So at Agricapture, we work directly with farmers and like you said, we work with a lot of rice farmers predominantly. And we help them implement, sustainable, regenerative practices on their farm, predominantly with saving water, which also saves methane. So we help farmers implement certain practices that work for their operation, and then we take the bulk of the work in terms of collecting data and verifying those practices with satellite imagery, with our entire tech team so that farmers can just focus on what they do best, which is farming. So we take that burden and really verify the impacts and the benefits, and then also take on the marketing and the sales to find certain companies that want to pay more for the rice, or pay for carbon credits, just other avenues to monetize those efforts that farmers are doing on their operation.
That's awesome. And since you mentioned there are the practices, what type of practices are actually important for rice farmers?
Yeah, I can take that one. So as you mentioned, our program is rice specific. As far as the eligibility and the requirements, the next is okay, you're doing rice. Well, what else do I have to do? It's alternate wetting and drying, which you'll hear coined as AWD. It's a more frequently used term, but still new, I think, to the public and as far as the farmers using that word, but not necessarily such a new practice as guys want to do more with less. And whether it's called sustainability or not, it's a practice that by using less water during the drawdown period, after the rice has been established, it actually doesn't have a lot of harm to the yield. So AWD, or the other one is also a water conservation practice called FIR, or FIR, furrow irrigated rice, which we in the South call row rice. So to be in the program, you have to do one of those two things, along with, work with us to, you know, you got to get the star next to your name. You got to provide the data. You got to, we work with guys in various levels, whether you're streamlined with everything connected on your, My John Deere, or your implements in the field, or if you're still getting handwritten records from your scout who goes out. We know a lot of guys, still provide a great service doing it that way. So, especially in the first couple of years, we have tried to be able to work with not just the guys who are already doing this, but guys who want to get involved.
That's great. Yeah, there's so much out there that you can do actually, and it's not just because of the sustainable practices. It's actually very good for growers, right? To reduce the water usage, etc. Megan, you mentioned methane. Like, what do these practices actually have to do with the methane emissions?
Yeah, I can answer that too. It's my understanding that when fields are fully flooded throughout the growing season, which is how rice is traditionally grown, that, that standing water on the field breaks down plant matter, and then that can emit methane into the air, into the atmosphere. So, just by limiting overall water, or, having those dry down events, farmers are also limiting the capacity to emit methane. So it can drastically reduce that as well on top of water.
Yeah, that was a
Amazing.
really good explanation. We have a senior agronomist on
Yeah.
also farms, and he would have been proud of that explanation. I think that's, that's the essential. I mean, that's the gist
Mhm.
of it. we covered the eligibility, but I forgot to mention, like, you do your part. What do we do? What do you get out of it? And so, through Agricapture, our main two value propositions are IP, and I mean identity preserved, not intellectual property. So IP, let's think identity preserved. That means full traceability. Like that's the real rice that was grown with those practices. That's IP'd. And so we have a that goes along with that, and we expect and have seen a premium come alongside that as well. And so that's been nice. And then, when you do any of these types of programs, if you collect information for carbon, then you collect it for everything else because that's kind of the most intricate, go. So it would have been, I guess a little bit negligible for us not to like consider, or negligent to consider carbon as like, hey, if all this other stuff doesn't work out, if we don't find buyers, like we can kind of bank on that. And that goes even deeper into the onion layers of, okay, well, you're going to generate carbon. Well, which market? And so maybe that's for a different date, but what I want to relay is the fact that we don't know the future either. We're just paying attention to it pretty closely, and what affects us. And we want to have an option, no matter how things go, to generate the most value for our farmers first and our suppliers, and we wouldn't mind making a little bit off of it too. But we think we're doing a pretty good job so far, and we're looking to expand our acreage and reach into other rice growing regions and also outside of rice as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very good challenge you guys actually took on here. And since you mentioned the programs, you have like two different programs, right? Like you mentioned there a little bit, Trevor, on the IP and like why you need the IP rights and like who are the buyers. But can
Yeah.
you speak to the differences between your programs and like the credit side so people understand?
Yeah. So I've caught myself confused here as well. And so the easiest way to start is like you start out thinking, is it associated with the grant or is it not associated with the grant? So anything that we do associated with our grant is going to have carbon credits at least generated or attempted to be generated. Like we are going to put that on a registry. We are going to exhaust efforts to try to create a carbon credit. Additionality reasons that can tally up that total value of what a field can provide. But really, we want to just be able to understand that, and kind of just like in the IP market, develop those relationships and find the places that reward us and our farmers best. And maybe leverage some of our credits to push that in its direction. So the carbon, just like the IP, is something that's developing. It is just it's because you have to collect everything for carbon. What we use for carbon also supports our grant work, where we pay guys for the data that they provide us to support those claims for water conservation. And they also agree to withhold the marketing of their crops. So they're doing these practices, they're signing up these fields, and then they give me until pretty late in the year, around November 15th, and they don't move that rice. They keep it stored on farm, and they give me time to go find a buyer for it. So out of the grant, there's two payments. One is, or they're both guaranteed, in light of you providing us with the information and doing the work required. One being for the data that supports the claims, and then two is for withholding the crop, where I will bring them an agreement and they can say, yes, I'd love to work with this IP supplier and get this premium, or no, that's a little bit out of my ballpark. The freight's going to eat up all that premium you say I'm going to get, and I'm just going to take my business elsewhere. But, loved working with you. And now I'd like to focus on, maybe the monetary side of these carbon credits that you're doing. So it is very confusing. If you lay it down, and usually a lot of these things are a little bit easier in person, and that's kind of my role, is to be that boots on the ground. And so between Lee Outwell, our senior agronomist, and myself, we try to cover 6 rice growing states if there's reasons for us to be there. And there's surely reasons for us to be in Arkansas, Mississippi, I would say Missouri, and just the mid-South growing region, and looking to take some nice big next steps into hopefully Louisiana, Texas, and California, probably in that order.
That's amazing. So actually, like growers have a lot of flexibility with you guys in the program. Like they can enroll in a given time and say like, yeah, I'm going to store the rice in that given moment. Maybe it doesn't make sense for them to wait on that rice until a certain moment because of like prices, etc. But they can choose later on to enroll in the credits program as well, right? So
That's
you guys
right.
offer a whole suite of options for them.
Yeah, and so the first year it was a 1-to-1 match. Whatever acres you signed up, we just took a steady, what does it cut? Arkansas and standard, it's, around 165, 170 bushels an acre. Like, let's require guys to sign that much up for IP. We were successful in the first year, and we went back to our customer base and said, hey, we told you not to sign up the whole farm. You gave us this much. How much do you want to do this next year? And with a very close to 100% re-enrollment rate, everybody tried to dump their acres. And we said, no, we can't do that. How can we position this to support the different sides of the business that we want to develop now? And then also give guys options to where we are ensuring that the best quality rice comes to us, but we're not tying up too much of the farm's liquidity or assets. So to do that, we separate the program where it's not now a 1-to-1 match, but you can have data acres and you can have IP bushels. So we went to bushels instead of acres because that just made things a little bit clearer on all fronts on what to expect when we look at how much we have to take to a buyer as far as that climate friendly supply. So that's a long way of saying now instead of if you got 500 acres that you want to sign up, but you only have 200 acres or 250 acres worth of grain bins, and you can do the practices on all 500, it gives you the ability to say, okay, all 500 of those acres have the same growing practices. I'm going to give the same information for it. When harvest time comes around, or if we're looking for specific quality traits or something that a buyer is willing to pay a premium on, whether it be arsenic or protein, something of that nature, it gives the farmer time to not only have to put everything into that basket, but to put the best rice there or the appropriate rice there. And so most buyers will pay you on a milling, or so like a finished turner weight. So it's not your volume from the field, it's not your dry volume. It's after it's gone through the milling, how much of that is left. So when you think about where you're going to put your best quality rice, if it's tied to a premium that you can get more for it, that ensures a better product and kind of the best case for quality assurance on our end to be able to take the best rice forward and associate it with climate friendly.
Maybe it's useful for growers to know how exactly they're compensated. You mentioned on the IP side, you have the premium.
Yeah, and so I probably shouldn't give the exacts. I don't know. I'll pause on that. If I can, I'll give it to you some other time. I'm not trying to withhold. It's a good amount. It's people are interested in it. It's over half of the total. And that comes in July. So that's agreeing that you're either going to give us your, some type of access to your machine, like turnkey data, or you've got somebody that does that, and we've got an in-house group that, like I said, whether it's from a piece of paper notebook or it's just you going into your MyOp account and assigning, the Agricapture account access to the associated fields and what you've enrolled. I mean, that's where we're at, and we did make a change to that data payment. It was just the same, a flat number. And we looked at the workload that we did and the fact that we're not really doing anybody any favors by doing that. If it's a sunk cost on us and we're just hiding it with grant money, it's not really a good thing to do. So in light of that, I think it's a way to push farmers in the right direction and show them that, hey, if you can get to this, it's a win not only for us, but a win for you, and we'll pay you more for it. And that's more accuracy and just, time devoted to that part of the process, which is crucial if you're going to get paid for it. So that I think the data payment is probably the biggest chunk. We withhold about a fourth of the total grant that comes in December, right around the same time that you're making that decision of where you want to take your rice. We're trying to get that. It was November 30th last year, the deadline. It was November 15th this year. But when you're building a market that's not there and you're really putting the lines on the road, I'll say that it was until the middle of January before we finished contracting, and you get the same amount that you normally would have in the grant. Being that you complete all the requirements, this is like the cherry on top. This is extra, this premium market. So the premiums that we made that we were able to pay out to guys last year, that was all on top of what they had already made and were guaranteed in the grant.
Yeah, and that's great. So a grower gets paid on the spot for the data they're giving. If the higher the quality of the data, they get more paid per acre, because it's also less work for you guys. But also, if a grower has a lot of like receipts and stuff that is not processed in the right way, you guys will take it anyways, and process that data. So it provides a lot of flexibility in that sense, and the premium is a plus in a way. There isn't that many programs out there that actually have that. So it's really interesting how you guys separated the data piece from the IP rice piece.
75 is somewhere where I think that you would hope, but depending on everybody's in the grant, am I in the grant and do I also get a carbon credit or do I also get a premium? So we've seen, anywhere from 50 to 200, and that be 50 means that I only got one of my payments and I didn't make the other one, for various reasons. That's a number that I would say that, 200 has been great. We do have guys that are close to that. But I would say we try to land somewhere, for the most part, somewhere around 75 to 100. But yeah, there are other opportunities, and when we find a partner, it's not always in Northeast Arkansas. And so the logistics, I think, are probably our biggest barrier to putting some of these premiums together. And as far as something that we can't change how far it is from between places. So
How does a grower actually start with the program? Do you have any timelines there or deadlines you want to share with them? Is it a calendar year? How does that work?
yeah, so I mean, we had a lot of outreach and we used a lot of connections in the first year. And this next year, I had a lot of people that I wanted to go take this to, that, good friends, and people that I couldn't because we had such a strong, re-enrollment. That being said, we did double our acres, we did add people, and we want to continue to build, and we have some pretty lofty numbers. So the way the contracting process is kind of emerged is that we will start looking probably in December and January at our current customer base. And depending on what that looks like, it will be mid to late January, February, the typical time that guys are coming to you, and that we're trying to get in front of the new people. And it's just all about who you know. The rice industry seems pretty small, and it gets smaller the more people you meet and the better connected you are. So a lot of times we already have some sort of connection, and that may be, so and so is my high school like teacher. I mean, we literally have it. That's true. One of our guys. So we try to work with people and like establish like a real in-person connection. And yeah, January would be, I think, the earliest that we would get to you. And John Harness is his name. I usually handle the mills, the supply agreements. I'm your conversation come November when we have a buyer. And John is who handles our data collection, runs a team in Nashville, and is the guy who vets. And you got to go see first before you get to me, at least.
Yeah, we'll share John's contact here with everyone if they're interested. So remember, around January, then these guys go out and start reaching out to growers. So have that pinpointed in your head, that as soon as you start working on your rice, you can check out the program. So yeah, thank you so much, Megan and Trevor, for chatting with me. Is there anything else you want to share with the audience?
We get confused too. It's new trying to do this. Just reach out and ask us questions. Sometimes the conversation's a lot easier. You can find a lot of stuff online, but sometimes, at least for me, it lends me with more questions, and it can be a lot easier to just make a phone call. So don't hesitate to do that if you think we're a fit, and you want to talk to us.
Yeah, yeah, I second what Trevor said. I think it can be confusing and there's so many words thrown around, but our mission, we know what's most important to us is finding something that works for every farmer and very relational. So definitely reach out to John, anyone on the team, and we can definitely make something work. So thank you for having us. This was fun.
It was fun. It was fun. Thank you so much, guys. We'll chat soon.